Let's get this show on the road, shall we? Let's fix my beautiful hair. Hold on a second. Just hold on a second. How you doing? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the David West stream. This is a stream where I, David West, take you through a journey and document my process on building the game I like to call #Vagabond Game. So every 3 weeks I do a live stream. These days, might be the occasional more coming up. We'll get into that later. But every 3 weeks, I definitely do a live stream update. I'm going to turn the music down just a pinch. I do a live stream update. The idea is to keep myself accountable. We're doing agile practices for game development. If you're not a developer, that's okay. You can follow along. It's totally fine. But the idea here is to make me accountable to you, the viewer. And we're just getting things really started here. This whole backstory about how long I've been doing this and trying to get the stream going. And ultimately, this is what we're doing. So this is the live moment Q&A. We're doing a sprint review, sprint retrospective, and the next sprint planning session all in one go. It's not that long. We're just kind of kicking things off, getting things moving. But there's been a lot of stuff to talk about, and that's what I'm going to do today. So let's get on to this. Yeah. So let's look at our little slide deck here. Okay, so real quick here. Let's go back. So for those of you that are new, welcome to the stream. This is Vagabond Game, right? #Vagabond Game. We're doing Sprint 0 review and retrospective. Ignore the date. I got the slide deck set up yesterday. It's a whole other part of the story. If you want to ask me why it's yesterday, feel free to ask me later. So yeah, here's the whole thing. We did Sprint 0. That is kind of like the test sprint, let's call it that. The idea of me getting warmed up, seeing if this actually feels like it makes a lot of sense, feels if it works, and seeing if I actually think it's a waste of my time, and your time. Because if it's wasting my time, it's definitely wasting your time. And I appreciate you being here, watching this, whenever it's just live or VOD. It doesn't matter. I appreciate you. So we're doing just Sprint 0, and I'll tell you right off the hop, it's gone well. But we're going to start off with a sprint review and a sprint retrospective to kind of talk about what I've accomplished over the last 3 weeks and kind of recap what the lessons I've learned are. Turn this down to my headphones just a pinch. There we go. Okay, so let's do this thing. So what is this? So again, like I said, we're doing a sprint review and a sprint retrospective. If you're not a software developer or you're new to agile practices or Scrum, here's kind of a real 30,000 foot view over this. First thing we do is the sprint review, and that's where the product owner, and that's me, discusses the progress that was made during the sprint by the development team. And that's also me, but that's not the point. But we talk about the progress that was made in the last 3 weeks. It's time boxed. We talk about the things that were done, that were not done, and were not started. Those are the three kind of ways I've broken it down. Talk about some highlights during the what happened during the sprint, and also the project health overall. So we talk about that part. Next thing we do is we do the developers demonstrate the progress. And normally that's going to be me demoing the game and actually playing it live on the stream and actually showing you the progress that's made in terms of feature sets and stuff like that. But there isn't a game to play yet. Not yet. We're going to talk about that again in a bit. The second half is the sprint retrospective. And I say second half very loosely. It's actually a small chunk of it because it's such a small team, that being me. We talk about the good and the less good events from the sprint. So things that I think went well and things that I think didn't go well in terms of productivity and getting things out the door. On top of that, the lessons learned and the call to action or the planned improvements I actually have to act on those. And we're going to do this every 3 weeks. We do this all the time to kind of look inward and see what we can figure out. And so, let's keep the show rolling here. So let's start with the sprint review, right? So this is Sprint 0. This was the plan we made in our sprint planning session. So finish up the game design document, one-pager, in the form of a wiki. Do storyboards for dialogue, storyboards for the survival gameplay mode. So those are the two different types of gameplay inside of Vagabond Game. And then outline the first purpose. Purpose is sort of a quest line in Vagabond. And in this case, I was going to outline the musician. It's the one I've been talking about for the longest time, and I wanted to really go through that. The sprint goal was just documentation of the vision, or documentation the vision. Real good English by me. Now here's the thing. We're doing the documentation in order to get the requirements out of my head. This is a lessons learned. I've been doing this stream off and on, no, pretty much on, for 8 months, and I was doing it twice a week. One night was gameplay, one night was development and coding. The problem was the code wasn't succeeding. It wasn't getting me anywhere. It wasn't making any progress. The reason was I had a vision in my head, but I was trying to translate it live on stream, and that didn't really work. I needed to work from a document. I needed to work from somewhere. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm really spending a lot of time on the design, making sure I have those systems worked out. So the results from that plan, well, it went okay. First of all, we did the things we got done: game design document, 1-pager we got finished, and the outline, the first purpose. So those were 2 big ones. Things I didn't get to complete, started but didn't complete: storyboards for the dialogue. So I got started down that path, but didn't finish them up. Last things that didn't even start with the storyboards for the survival gameplay, and I want to break each one of these down separately anyway. Let's start with the good stuff, the stuff that was done. So the game design document, 1-pager, was finished. I didn't do it in the form of a wiki though. The reason for that is I ended up doing it in OneNote/SharePoint, whatever you want to call it, and basically in Microsoft Office tools. The reason for that's something I'm pretty familiar with, and I wanted it to be more consumable by non-developers. I always have a tough time taking my developer hat off and putting on a designer or PM hat, or whatever you want to call it, a non-technical hat. And the fact that I have that challenge, when I result in going into a wiki or a developer tool, it takes me away. It gets me focused on the coding problems and gets me into code tool sets. And it's great for developers, but it's not great for other people that want to consume the game. People that are not technically, not technically inclined. People that are not developers, they're not coders, right? Get me caught up in the details like using Git and generation and all this stuff that's just unnecessary. So Office is a good middle ground for that, so that's what I'm using. I also wanted to outline the first purpose, and I did that. I did the musician one. This took a lot more work than I thought it was going to take, mainly because there's a lot of meta process I needed to really figure out. So I outlined all the parts, which is the 4 major parts of every quest line is an introduction, the discovery, the exploration, and finale phase. So this was me kind of really designing the game on paper. In terms of systems and processes, and ultimately developing a requirements document for the video game. But this did take a lot of extra time because I did need to really work out those details and work out that design so I could kind of map that to technology. So, continuing on, things that are in progress or not completed, the storyboards for the dialogue. I did a lot of work on this. I spent a good week solid on this, in all my spare time. And I completed a state diagram to better understand the flow and scope of the vision. That's kind of where I got to. And that was actually me trying to iterate on the storyboards, trying to figure out what I even needed to produce as part of the storyboards. And so what I ended up doing was doing this state diagram. We're going to go into that right now. Oh, we'll go into it after this slide, sorry. But things that still need to be completed are the actual storyboards themselves. Originally, I thought I could piggyback off of some work I had done prior to even starting Sprint Zero. I did a bunch of work on storyboarding and the last few streams that I did before I took a month off. And I still need to complete the actual storyboards in that process. And I thought I could piggyback off that, like I was saying, but I couldn't. I didn't know what I had to build. I knew what the system was, but to think of the details of that gameplay, how that actually is going to translate into a controller and gameplay, and that I'm going to build that, I didn't have that. And I didn't realize how much I needed that. So that's what we're doing there. But with the states, the transitions, and the triggers all clearly defined, it can help me ensures that I'm going to have a more complete vision of what I need to build for the storyboards, and also a more complete vision of the design overall for this chunk of the gameplay. So, in context, this is the diagram I gave before about the overall gameplay loop, and this is the only part that I've really been focusing on, is just the conversation. This is the heart of the game. Everything revolves around the conversation, and so that's where the most of this stuff is actually happening. Now, just to show off, this is kind of a sort of a mini demonstration of what I actually got done. This is my overall gameplay flow. This is all the different states. Every rectangle you see there is a state that the player can enter and exit and go through, and there's a transition there, which is all the lines that describe in the bottom left there. These are the ways that you can change the state of the game and how they all flow back and forth and whatnot. Every time you enter a level or a conversation, and every time you exit a level. Figuring this out took a while, but it was absolutely worth it. I really have a clear grasp on what I'm trying to build now. I have a clear vision of what the storyboards are going to... I know what I have to build for the storyboards, and I'm sure there's details I haven't worked out yet. I'm absolutely sure of that. But at least I know how I have to build them. So the next ideas for the next sprint, hopefully I'll have the storyboards completed, and we'll actually see what things look like. So yeah, and this is actually... I did this one wrong. This is actually stuff that's not done. But yeah, sorry, not started. Storyboards for survival. This is the second gameplay mode, sort of the camping mode or the survival mode. I didn't start this, and the reason I didn't start it was the core gameplay isn't done yet. I'm not going to start a second set of storyboards without finishing the first one. It just doesn't make any sense. So those are on the back burner for now. They're in the backlog at the very least, and that's okay. I'm okay with them being in the backlog. They need to be there. We will flesh out that gameplay, but I think the conversation piece and the purpose, that's going to work out some details about what kind of gameplay I need to prototype outside of those two pieces, outside of the conversations. So the demo, I'm not going to actually demo the OneNote documents, but I do actually have a one-pager for that. That's not really necessary. I don't think you need to see the OneNote. But the big thing is, I have made this in a more shareable format. I am working through the details of trying to get a quote-unquote stakeholder group, whether it's through Discord and through Office 365, so that you can log in with your Discord credentials or your Mixer credentials, and you'll be able to see this stuff. That's actually what I'm kind of hoping to sort out. And so we're going to get there eventually, but it isn't. I'm already kind of adding content to this little SharePoint site and trying to work out what that actually means for people to be on the inroad. So I'm working through some of those details. Okay, so skipping the demo. Other sprint highlights. I actually was in Seattle for a week for my day job, but that doesn't. My day job is during the day, and that, although the conference took up a ton of my time and I loved it, it was a lot of fun. Totally business related, SharePoint related actually. The Seattle Indies meetup happened while I was there. They had a little social night. They go to Optimistic Brewery. Anyway, it's just not too far off downtown. Walked over there, got a flight of beers, and just chilled out. Met some cool people, other developers, other new people getting into the business, some old-timers, people that have had ups and downs, and got to hear a lot of great stories. And then I started talking to them about my game, because they actually asked, well, what are you building? And they kind of got into it. I said, well, you know, just getting things started, just getting things moving. But the validation from my peers, they've actually validated the idea. And this was really awesome. This really helped me feel like I actually had a bit of a grasp on what I was trying to accomplish. Even though this is so new, the sprint part of it, the development in this idea is not new. I've been really working through this for a long time, barely a year. But the validation of my peers was exceptionally supportive. It was very supportive, and it really helped a lot. Thinking through design, it helped me to think through design and development practices as well. We got talking a lot about code and design and the challenges that go back and forth with that. I met with some other developers. They're doing some very cool games that I hope you'll see on the stream in the next few weeks. Just I want to analyze them and break them down and learn from the best, right? But that being said, I want to think through. I got me thinking through that and really made me realize I got to clean up some of this. We'll get into that in the retrospective. I also got some extra games to analyze. This is where I want to actually touch base. This is where the extra streams are going to come from. Where the Water Turns to Wine. I haven't played that. I've been recommended to play that game, though. And I've seen it, and I know this is right up my alley. This is the kind of game I need to be looking at. And so I'm going to look at that game. And also Headliner. This has been on my... I didn't realize this game actually came out on PC already. But it's coming out for Switch right away. I'm a big Switch nerd. I prefer Switch if I can get it there. So I think I'm going to get it there. But Headliner is another one that I want to play about fake news, and it's kind of a perfect, horrible mess in that beautiful way of like the reality and video game worlds kind of collide into this perfect little storm to have some fun with something so tragic, which is our reality. But in any case, that is what I did there. So that was really cool. I actually have this name tag. I kept it. It's on the front of my laptop right now. I'm very proud that I went to that thing. I was very nervous, and I had a great time. Okay, in terms of Project Health, though, putting my product owner hat on, it's still good. This is minimal impact on the outcomes because I don't really have any milestones set other than some very soft ones come October, November. So it's not a big deal. So I'm not too worried about it. I'm still meeting the expectations that I've set for myself. In terms of the musician storyline, I did flesh that out and have that whole purpose mapped out to the details, but it has a much higher production value than I originally anticipated. I don't know why I didn't think that was going to be challenging. I knew that was a thing that I needed to worry about, but it was something that I found very interesting that I didn't think of before. So the production value of the design. This is thinking in films. If you're a film person, the idea of, if you think about it, hear about a producer or a director, you know, thinking of what the value of production is, you know, when you're ending your movie. If you're ending a movie with a big epic scene where there's lightning bolts shooting from the sky and there's an epic battle between gods, very expensive production. If your ending is just a guy falls over dead, lower production value. So that being said, that's got me thinking about that side. And on top of that, I'm doing more considerations for development automation. So this is what I said I was considering design and development. We'll talk about why that is. But to ensure that I stay out of my development comfort zone, doesn't cause any distractions, I got caught up in so many details related to looking at other engines, trying to figure out automation and Docker, and I get caught in the code. And this is the thing. This is furthering what I was saying about using Microsoft Office tools that are maybe not getting the data that I want out of them up front, but they do the job for now and they make it more shareable. So they solve some other problems, but it keeps me in the designer mode. I can code this thing up, and I've already started doing some work for Sprint 1 late last night because this was kind of my freebie night, so I did what I want. And it's amazing how easy I get into that trope into that distraction of coding. I need requirements. I need to build a project. I know how to do this, but I got to pull them out of my own head. That's the hardest part, and just so I don't get stuck in that rut or that comfort zone of code, I need to focus on investing in development automation so that when something's done, it's actually done. So that's what we're going to be doing. So next steps, we'll talk about more about this in the retrospective, but I need to start doing development and design tasks with every sprint. That's what I need to be doing. So that's how we're going to start breaking up the sprint plans moving forward, is we're going to have a development and a design section so we can kind of see how balanced they are. Because the idea here is to make sure that I actually am assigning work out. I'm trying to keep myself accountable to you, but also to myself. And managing yourself and falling into your comfort areas is something that I don't want to do, because I'll do it every time if I can. So having that that forced split and in the planning session will be helpful. Okay, I'm just gonna take a quick minute here just to do this and see if there's any questions. I'm gonna take a quick moment to look at chat just for a second here, make sure everything's still healthy and running. Seems that way. I forgot to test the chat. Hello everyone, we are moving on to the retrospective. Okay, so we got that. Oh, I forgot to check Facebook to see if Facebook's working. Shoot. Just need a quick minute to make sure that things are running the way they're supposed to be running. Yep. Looks good. Looking good. Chat's working. Periscope apparently is working. I got someone to let me know that was working fine. So, okay. Maybe one day I'll even be on LinkedIn. Okay. Chat's going. We're good. Let's get back to this. Let's get back to let's get back to work here. Just gonna quickly marker the stream here. Perfect. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Slides. So sprint retrospective. This is gonna be a short little section. All I'm gonna do is talk a little bit about what what lessons I've pulled away from this and what we're going to do. I kind of talked already about that in the sprint review. But if you have any feedback, you're watching this on VOD, write this stuff in the comments. I will be reading the comments. Tweet me, Instagram me, LinkedIn message me, whatever you got to do. Send me the note, because I would love to hear from you and understand what is actually going on here, about what your thoughts are, about how I can, as a solo, further organize myself and keep myself focused. So, that being said, let's get to the retrospective, shall we? Boop, there we go. Okay, so the good things that we did. The good things that I managed to get done were using the default Office tools for project management and documentation instead of using developer tools. For those of you that know me personally, you know that I'll fall back into a coding tool. I make things more complicated than I need to. It's what I do. It's because I have these delusions. I want to call it, I mean, let's just break it down. I have delusions of grandeur. Okay? I want to build an empire before I actually have something before the empire has something to offer. Someone once told me, build a stage, before you build your stage, build a play. Or build the show. And you know what? That's the whole thing here. I have this whole, I usually try to build a business, but I have nothing to show for it. I have nothing to sell. And this is the thing, like a video game, I want to make the video game so badly that I'm not even worried about what the video game is. But I'm like, the key is it has to be my video game. So doing the project management tools, it's out of my comfort zone for sure, but it's forcing me to be simpler, simplify things for myself, for everyone moving forward as I share more and more stuff. And ultimately, it's a better kind of space for that. And I'm hoping, like I said, include people in a sort of a stakeholder subscription, not like a non-paid subscription, just you're going to join the early access kind of thing and give you access to some of the progress of the stream so you have a little bit more interaction with me and input on the game. So it makes it more shareable, the content, using Office tools, and it keeps the designer friendly. So that was the good thing that I did for sure. The less good, I got a few of these items for sure, because this is our first sprint, we're learning. What I learned is that an event during a sprint results in the less or the same amount of time being done. So I originally had thought, because I was going to Seattle for a while, and I had a lot of days where I had like just no family commitment. It was just more a matter of taking care of myself and getting a bite to eat, and I could just do what I wanted in the evening, other than doing some networking like I do for work all the time. But yeah, it ended up being like I kind of just chilled a lot. I burnt a lot of that time reading and just doing other stuff, because it was kind of like my first time of like just kind of some dedicated me time. So I have to realize that any event, whether I think it's going to improve or decrease productivity, I need to really see it as it's going to either decrease it, it's likely going to decrease it because it will be a distraction, and I need to plan for that and set expectations, because I overplanned for what we had going on in the previous sprint, or over allocated. And ultimately, developer brain is constantly distracting when designing. I've talked about that a lot already. I don't need to go into it much further. But this needs to be considered when I'm working on deciding what tasks to work on. And lastly, I need to factor in production values. Haven't talked too much about this. I mentioned it briefly. Doing the musician purpose in terms of the design and really fleshing out how that all worked and everything. So the good thing I got out of that was the whole meta framework for how a quest line would go in the game. The bad part was that I figured out the musician one, the one that I was sure I was going to do, its production values were just too high for what I have moving forward. There's a whole musical element to it that, to get decent payoff, I'm going to even say it's great, to get a payoff that I'm happy with, you have to be a pretty decent, I'd have to get hire on a pretty decent guitarist, and I don't have any production value for that, right? I have no finances to pay someone, and everyone gets paid. So I'm pulling that back for now. It's good that it's documented. I have another one in the bank now, but it's a matter of what is the next one, and we'll talk about it in a bit. In terms of lessons, so the design is helping me sort of the production value early on, which is amazing. That's really important. So graphics, music, gameplay, like what level of commitment is there in these purposes, and I can kind of do that privately with a handful of people, get those details. The state diagrams that I managed to produce, that one big one, are pretty much scope documents for game development. It's more specifically gameplay development. So states, transitions, and triggers is what you need to identify what's going on in a specific event or a specific thing, or a specific level in my case. And again, I need to focus on design more. That's not my comfort area, but it's starting to come together. But I need to do more of the design than development moving forward. And to do that, I'm going to focus on automation of development. I am going to automate my build, automate as much as I can, so that way when I'm coding, but this pushing out the DevOps and all this other stuff that I love to get myself lost in, it's on the back, it's away. It's when it's done, and I'm going to invest heavily in that. So the calls to action that I have, design before development. So when I schedule something on a sprint, I will always do a design task first before I start coding. Design needs to take for the driver's seat on this, because I will fall back into my comfort zones every single time. I'm going to keep using the office tools for planning, for everything. OneNote, I'm going to use SharePoint. I'm just going to see how far I can take these tools without having to customize them or trying to write a custom piece of code. But I want to see how far I can get while keeping everything kind of documented in a big hub. And last but not least, I need to invest more in automation. Keep my hands out of the code as much as possible. So I'm going to be coding. It's going to be fine. But like I said, automate. That way when it's done, it commits and it's just pushed it out. So we'll get that going. It'll move. And I can do that. I can do that well. Stakeholder Q&A. So if you have any questions in the chat or on the VOD, this is your time to pause the video for a minute, take a sec, drop your chat question there. I'm gonna go over to me for a sec. There, that's the end of that deck. Perfect. So I'm gonna mark this as end retrospective. And if you have any questions, throw them into the chat, that's fine. Is the chat even visible? It's not visible. There we go. Now we have chat. Fantastic. Let's just scooch over. Just do that. Move over here. There we go. But, yeah. If you're like watching this in VOD, that's totally fine. Just like I say, drop them in a comment. Find me on Twitter. Find me on Instagram. Find me in like one of the 50 places that I exist on the internet. Facebook, just leave a note. That'll be fine. Just gonna take a quick look at my sprint, my health here, on all the parts. Oh, there we go. Hey, Rouser, how's it going? When you said you would design before dev, you're gonna make an actual design issue to tackle in your sprint. Yes, literally. So, we're gonna do the sprint plan right after this, but absolutely, that's what I'm doing. So in Sprint 0, all of my tasks were actually design-related tasks. And so I know there's a problem that I need to flesh out, and the deliverable of that, so my definition of done, before I can put that under the shelf, it's a design document. There's some artifact that I produce that documents the gameplay, whether it's storyboards or a OneNote page or a diagram. Usually visual is better. It has to usually include a visual. But absolutely, that's exactly what I'm trying to accomplish. So, thank you. That's a good question. Yeah. So, yeah, no worries. Okay, so let's keep going. If you have any questions, throw them into the chat, by the way. I will get to them if you don't see them visible when I'm doing the slides. I will get to them at the end of the slide deck. So we're gonna get into that right away here. So let's go to the slides one more time. Oh, let's get to the different slide deck though, shall we? Okay, let's hold on. Low production values here. Close that guy. We're gonna change. Go to studio mode here for a sec. I'm just going to change my slide deck here. There we go. Start up the next one. There's a reason why I actually divided these things up. And the reason is I needed to make sure that I had the video kind of sorted out. And as a sprint artifact, your sprint 1 plan shouldn't be part of your sprint 0 artifacts. Kind of screws everything up. Okay, here we go. Gotta just refresh OBS. Come on, OBS. Oh, here we go. Just studio mode, and here we go in 3, 2, 1. Add stream marker, because I'm classy. And boom. Welcome to the Sprint 1 planning section of the stream. Like, these are really, this is the shorter of the streams that we're doing. And reason being, we don't got a lot to show just yet, but we're going to get to that. It's no apologies. Let's keep going. So the sprint plan is straightforward, right? We're doing the sprint planning. It's going to be a 3-week sprint again. The end date is September 15th, 2019. So that's a Sunday, I believe, or Sunday or Monday. But that's the date it's going to be ending. So I have 3 weeks to get these following things done. The planned work I have on the design side, I am going to finish the storyboards for the dialogue or conversation gameplay. That needs to get done. That is the heart of this whole game. That absolutely needs to get done. So I'm going to finish those up. Now that I have my state diagram, I know that I can do this, and I will. So next piece is the lower production purpose or quest line. So like I was saying earlier, the musician quest line or purpose, as I like to call them, it's too high production value. Like there's just too much cost that's going to go into that in terms of getting a very good guitarist to write some original music for the game. And I'm not, this is my first game. I'm not going that far unless I'm doing it myself. So I have some ideas for a lower production purpose, and we're going to talk about that. That's what I have to do. So I will flesh all that out with the metagame stuff already kind of fleshed out in the design from the previous sprint. This is going to be, I think this is going to go a little bit faster. I've started working through the details on my commute this morning, and yeah, it's coming together. More specifically, I am putting some constraints on myself, though, if you want to get into the specifics. I'm only going to use sound effects, dialogue, and gameplay. That's what I want this to meet. So there's no new visual cues, there's no new special effects, there's no new, no new whole graphic palettes is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a core, bare bones purpose. And that might not be the one that I go with to go live, but it will be one that we get done. So that's the design part. So we're going to start with one of those, probably the purpose, because I want to get, that's kind of a thing that's itching me, and I think I can get that done pretty well, pretty quick. So on the second side of the house, the development side, we're going to be automating the scaffolding for continuous integration of the game. So right now I'm thinking it's likely still going to be the Unity 3D engine, likely. But the thing I have to get, and we're going to display a title screen and exit the game. This is going to, so what we should have, let's not get into the weeds. What we should have is next sprint, there will be a playable version of the game released somewhere. I will be doing continual deployment on this for people that are either that are part of the Discord. We're going to find a way to do this, or whether you're on Mixer during chat, we'll find a way to get you in there. That being said, it's not going to be much. It is really about getting the scaffolding done for continuous integration and continuous deployment. And it might just be more of the continuous integration piece, but we'll see how far we can go. The importance here is my reliance on automation. I really want and need that so that I don't get caught up in spending weeks or days or whatever free time I have just working on the complexities that are continuous integration, development, Docker, containerization, blah, 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 blah. Game development is a very unique beast where it's a lot of art woven into very technical problem sets, and finding a solution isn't as easy as I thought it would be. But I'm learning these engines, specifically Unreal and Unity are the two that I'm going back and forth between, and learning and seeing what other people have done before me and trying to step up to that. So we're going to see how it goes. I think it's going to be Unity still. But like I said, I'm making some good progress on the game. But we're going to get the scaffolding for continuous integration done this sprint as well. So that's the only development task we have. But the goal of the sprint is to build a minimal foundation. And I mean that in two fronts. On the design side, I want a minimal production value. That means faster turnaround on the vision. And ultimately, what you're going to be playing on your PC or whatever, likely your PC. So that's the first bit. I want something to lower production so that I can start building game content faster. And on the development side, again, that investment in automation, I've hammered that, but I want to minimize my need to stay in the code by default because I need requirements, I need a spec. So again, a minimal foundation, minimal things to get things moving, to demonstrate progress to the stakeholders, and that's you watching this. And We are going to share this stuff as we go, and I will have something out in 3 weeks. I guarantee it. Because I had a really good night last night working on that automation stuff, so that'll be good. Let's see here. Questions. That's it. That's where we're at. It's a pretty straightforward set there. If there's any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Or you can tweet me or Instagram me later if you got them. Like, that's fine too. Oh, I'm getting mocked on my Slack channel here. Is the sprint 0 is the test sprint? Dave White, I love you too, man. Just saw that. That's fantastic. I like that I'm killing my Agilist team. I know plenty of people that are hardcore DevOps and Agilist, and they're gonna burn me alive for the hard mess that I'm doing with this, but they're gonna help. They can help me straighten me out, get me back on track. I'm looking at you, Dave. Okay. If there are no questions, I think that's actually where we're gonna close it out then. So I want to thank you for everything. Appreciate the time. If you want to follow along, if you want to join the Discord, that's actually a really good spot to find. !Discord in the chat will always get you a link whispered to you. So that'll get you joining the Discord. It's not a very active Discord. It's just where I kind of drop comments. It's an easy way to get a hold of me, and it's the fastest way to find me. So, but as usual, there's a ton of places on social media to find me as well. So always check that out. Feel free to reach out to me and give me some feedback. And I will see you live in 3 weeks. But I'll be doing weekly sprints. So every Monday night, I release a sprint or a stand-up, a weekly stand-up or weekly scrum video, and give you guys the weekly update. So there'll be 2 of those, and then I'll do another live stream. And yeah, if that's that, I appreciate everyone's time. And this VOD is going to be going on LinkedIn and a bunch of places, so feel free to find me on any of these things. Add your comments and feedback and all that jazz. And in the meantime, if you do me a favor and have yourselves a pleasant day and or evening, I'd greatly appreciate it. Special thanks to, what is this, Audio Library Plus for the music. And I'll catch you next time with the Scrum video on Monday at 9:30 p.m. Central Time, UTC -5. And I'll see you in 3 weeks with a release. Fingers crossed. Take care, everyone.